This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward.
Hi, I'm Russ Capper, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. Today, first up, Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, former astronaut, and now inventor and founder and CEO of Astra Rocket Company, a science-based business taking on commercialization of spaceflight and diversifying into the renewable energy space. After that, the topic is Australia, and I'll be visiting with Greg Foley of Stonebridge and Colin McHattie, an independent consultant, both with the Australian American Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to be talking about their upcoming Australian American Energy Conference. All of that after this.
Where will the energy come from to move us forward? From natural sources in abundant supply, or perhaps a man-made source? At NRG, we believe innovation will solve our energy needs. That's why NRG is moving away from fossil fuels towards wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies to power the smart grid, the electric car, and our clean energy future. We're using all of our energy to develop more of it.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. My guest now is Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, the inventor of the Bessemer engine, the founder and CEO of Astra Rocket Company, and quite a guy that's now focused on energy as well. Franklin, welcome to the Energy Makers Show.
Thank you.
Well, let's start here from the top, because the topic is really the commercialization of space flight, correct? That's
correct.
That's what Astra does.
That's right.
And you do that because you've had a little bit of experience in space, correct?
That is correct.
Give us an overview of your experience as an astronaut.
I spent 25 years as an astronaut at NASA and was very fortunate to fly many times. I flew 7 missions on all of the space shuttles except for the Challenger that we lost.
Right.
And was able to visit the Mir station, the Russian station, and the International Space Station. So I've done just about everything that there is to do there.
Really cool. And from what I understand from the story is that you were born and raised in Costa Rica, left Costa Rica when you were 18 to come to the United States and be an astronaut.
I was a product of the space bug, or the space age, when it began in 1957 with the launching of the Sputnik satellite.
Right. Share with our audience, we're going to get to energy, but before we get to energy, share the main product that Astra Rocket produces and is aimed to make commercially available.
The main product is a rocket. It is a rocket engine, but it's a very different rocket engine. It's a plasma engine, which is able to work in space only. It doesn't lift anything from the ground. It is a rocket that works in the space environment. And in the space environment, it is a far more efficient and economical rocket and eventually faster rocket to transport things from point A to point B in space.
Okay.
So our niche, our business opportunity is not launching from the Earth. It is actually moving equipment, hardware, and eventually humans from point A to point B in space.
Okay, now I've had quite a tour of your facility and it's very impressive. So share with our Energy Makers audience the status of the rocket today.
We have the most advanced prototype right now. It is the Bessemer VX200. It is a 200 kilowatt. It is the most powerful plasma engine in operation in the world today. And we are about 3 years away from demonstrating this technology in space, taking it to the International Space Station where we would actually do the firing. Turns out these rockets have to operate in a vacuum. And of course here in a laboratory we have a vacuum chamber. Vacuum chamber can barely keep up with these kinds of powerful rockets. So we really would like to have the test on in space. And so that's what the station is for.
And I also understand that you think potentially one of your first customers would be the International Space Station.
That is the case.
To play a role to keep it in orbit.
It's any space station. It doesn't have to be the International Space Station. Any object that is orbiting close to the Earth is very large and it suffers from the drag of the atmosphere, has to be pushed. Otherwise it will fall. And so we will be able to provide the service of pushing at a far lower cost than a conventional chemical today.
Spoken like a true businessman. So this transition from government employee, NASA, to a business person, I mean, that's quite a change, isn't it?
It's quite a transformation, and I have had to make that transition. And of course, I now have 7 years of experience. And I have to say that many things I would have done differently 7 years ago, but here we are, and this is where what has happened. The company has been in operation for that long. We have chosen to do some diversification along the way, because it's important for us to not just depend on investors.
Right.
We want to be able to start generating some revenue, which actually stimulates the investment anyway.
Right.
And so we have diversified. We are a very high technology company. We've got all of the tools, all of the knowledge to apply some of our know-how to solving some problems on Earth.
Okay, and from what I understand, you've actually got customers now, and the focus is energy, renewable energy.
That is correct. We have begun to focus particularly in the renewable energy area, and specifically in the use of hydrogen. Hydrogen as the whole cycle of hydrogen production, hydrogen storage, and then hydrogen use to produce energy or to generate the energy that is stored in the hydrogen. So we have a number of projects, and most of this work is being done in our facility in Costa Rica. And we are looking for niches of market and opportunities that perhaps are not the traditional ones. We're more interested in the rural areas, the use of these fuels in simple applications in a very sort of distributed fashion before we go into the massive production such as you would need in the transportation field or industrial.
Well, and as I understand it, you're converting actually using solar energy to split hydrogen and oxygen and then produce hydrogen.
Yeah, what we do is water electrolysis. We take just plain water and use the electricity generated by sun, by solar or wind, to split up the water and store the hydrogen. This hydrogen then is used in combination with methane coming from farming, from milk production,
animal waste.
And in combination, in the proper proportion, it can be a very, very useful fuel, which then goes into a conventional generator set. And we are working with a fairly large company, Cummins Inc., to do that transition. We actually have a small genset that has been modified to run on mixtures of hydrogen and methane.
Great. Well, I have to congratulate you for diversifying and then actually capturing a customer. I mean, coming from that many years in NASA and out here in the cold, cruel world of capitalism, it sounds like you're doing pretty well.
Well, it's very important to be able to diversify, very important to be able to adapt to the conditions of where you are.
That's right.
Otherwise, you're not going to survive.
That's right.
It's as simple as that.
That's right. All right, and that wraps up our discussion with Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, and we'll be back with more right after this.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. Our topic today is Australia, and my guests are Greg Foley of Stonebridge and Colin McHattie, an independent consultant, both with the Australian American Chamber of Commerce. Guys, welcome to the Energy Makers Show.
Thanks, Russ. Good to be here.
Good
Appreciate
deal.
that, Russ.
All right. Now we are going to focus on energy. Both of you guys sort of have an energy background, and I assume our audience can tell that you're faking an Australian accent right now as well.
You bet.
Right. But before we get into it, why don't both of you give me a little short story of your background? Colin, you go first.
Well, I've got about a 35-year career in the oil and gas industry. I started off in Perth, Western Australia after graduating there. Started off as a geologist in the oil and gas game, and then moved over to Oklahoma in 1981 with my company, and spent the rest of my career in the United States working in the US and around the world in various oil and gas activities, including business development and project development and management, and the last 2 years I've been a consultant in that same business.
Okay, but Perth, you're talking about the west coast, the way far west part of Australia, right?
Well, Perth is one of the most beautiful cities in the world,
right.
And we're proud to be from there.
Right. You don't seem to agree with that.
I'm from the other side of the island, Russ. I'm a Sydney sider, so.
All right. Well, give us your background.
Well, I started off as a school teacher, and suddenly I got involved in computer technology and worked for that for a few years in Australia, and that's what brought me to the US to work for a company that happened to be working in the energy industry.
Okay.
And so I got into energy about 14 years ago.
Okay.
And still working on the technical side, supporting oil and gas companies in what they do in their business practices.
Okay.
Along the way, I also got involved with the Australian American Chamber of Commerce, which is another part of the story.
Okay, and it's a very active chamber from what I've heard and seen a little bit too.
Well, we've had you down for one of our sundowners, Russ.
Boy, it's a great thing.
You met a few of
to.
the boys doing what we do well, but the chamber is very active. When I joined the chamber back in '99, it was somewhat smaller, and we've grown a lot. We've done a lot of different activities, including the Energy Conference, which this coming January will be our 5th annual Energy Conference.
Okay, and that's what we're really here to talk about. So describe what happens at the Australian American Energy Conference.
Well, over the years, we've had quite a few different speakers. First year we did it, we had Matt Simmons, who's since deceased, but we've had some very impressive speakers over the years who have come in and given a very good aspect of the different components of the energy industry from both an Australian and an American point of view. As you're aware, there's a lot of American companies that are doing business in Australia, and there's several Australian companies that are doing business in the United States. So we look to appeal to both sides of the pond, so to speak, in terms of bringing an agenda together, which this year we've had Colin join in as co-chair, and he's the program developer for that particular agenda for next year's conference.
Okay, before we go any further, Colin, tell us, what are the dates of the conference coming up?
Well, the key date, of course, is January the 18th. Okay. It's a Friday.
Right.
And we are kicking off, though, with an icebreaker the evening before.
Okay.
And not to mention the wine reception that follows the follows the conference as well.
And we have a gala on the Saturday night afterwards as well, which is last year we had over 500 people at that gala.
A gala.
A gala.
Okay.
And we actually raised money for a local charity called Project Joy and Hope, and they do a fantastic job looking after families and children who have terminal diseases.
Okay, cool.
And we're very proud to be associated with them.
Sounds like a great cause there, for sure. Okay, so I'm not totally up to date on the energy world in Australia right now, too. So give us an overview. Let's start with you, Colin. What's it like down there right now? Is there a lot of exploration? Is there shale? What's going on?
Well, of course, the big news in Australia is the huge development of the LNG business there. Currently, there are 7 LNG projects being built, roughly $180 billion in investment underway. Those will all come online. One came online last year, and the rest will come online over the next 2 to 3 years. And Australia, as a consequence, will be the largest exporter of LNG in the world. And but there's also this need for more internal resources, both oil and gas. Australia is a net importer of oil. And also to support some of the new LNG projects and perhaps further expansions, there's starting to be a lot of growing momentum around the search for unconventional resource plays. And that indeed is basically the major theme of our conference, since it's the most topical aspect of what's happening there at the present time.
Right, is unconventional. So, and when you talked about the need for resources, you're talking about human resources, you're talking about talent there?
well, talent is a big need for sure.
Right.
But
right.
Australia being a population of about 23 million,
right,
and having a size of essentially the lower 48 of the United States,
right,
is vastly under-resourced in human capital to develop a lot of these projects.
Right.
There's a huge amount of expertise shortage for the LNG construction, not to mention future developments. And of course the challenge with unconventional resources is there are a lot of basins and plays that are really underappraised, underexplored, and you see at the current time a lot of new foreign joint ventures being established, almost daily or weekly or monthly,
right,
and a lot of investment starting to pour into that. But
right,
these are areas of the country that are very remote, which makes it even more challenged. And we're going to focus on that,
right,
and the challenges behind developing those resources.
And the infrastructure to support them as well.
Okay, now Greg, he mentioned the size. You're not trying to tell me that Australia is bigger than Texas, are you?
Only 5 times. It's really funny you should raise that, because last year we had 2 of the Australian states represented, Queensland and Western Australia.
Right.
And, Australians are never going to try and outdo each other, Russ.
Right.
But the Queensland guy came in and he had a map of Texas superimposed inside the map of Queensland and said that Queensland was 2.5 times the size of Texas. Not to be outdone, the Western Australian guy came in and put this tiny little Texas.
I thought you were going to say you put Queensland in there.
So. No, well, he could have too, because
right.
Western Australia is virtually twice the size of Queensland. So
that must create incredible challenges in exploration and development. My goodness. I mean, and even transport. I mean, you can't do that with pipelines there very much. I mean.
Well, let me tell you a little story. When I first came over here, I got hit for speeding one day in a school zone going along San Felipe, which has got a median strip 3 lanes each way, and policeman said, you're a terrible guy, you've just been doing 26 miles an hour in a school zone. And he said, man, where I come from, they call this interstate. Because the Pacific Highway was between Sydney and Brisbane was 2 lanes each way, with a double yellow line down the middle, no median or anything. It was interstate.
But don't you have those trucks? We call them 18-wheelers over here. They might be 30-wheelers over there that almost look like trains traveling on road.
They call them road trains.
Road trains.
And they're the ones that go across the Nullarbor, which is from the east side to the west side and back again, which is 4,000 miles, right across the country. You might have 1 or 2 gas stations along the way, but once you get out into the middle of the country, there's nothing out there. So
now, are those used at all for hauling petroleum products, and or are they just?
I don't think so. Yeah. I think the hauling of the petrol. If you look at the Perth infrastructure and the Western Australian infrastructure, most of that is going to be processed in an LNG terminal for export reasons. It's not going to be used domestically. And one of the challenges on the east coast is that you do have the large capital cities over there. You've got Brisbane, you've got Sydney, you've got Canberra, you've got Melbourne. Even down to Adelaide on the south side. And so, getting the support infrastructure to get any of the unconventional gas coming out of these plays up in Queensland into the regular domestic infrastructure is another part of the challenge. But there's still a lot of that gas that's going to be exported and converted directly to LNG on the East Coast and taken to various markets in Asia as well. Okay.
Now, I think you said this in the beginning about the upcoming conference. It's both to, sort of attract expertise and assets to use in Australia, but the opposite of that's true too. You want Australian technology and capabilities to start playing even a bigger role in the U.S., correct?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of Australian companies that, on the oilfield services side, that have got innovations that they've developed because of the tyranny of distance, as we call it, dealing with all the challenges of being in isolated areas. And those people are very interested in showcasing their products and technology that they've developed in Australia to the larger oil and gas companies over here for sort of the international distribution. And then on the other hand, there's always the need for the technology that's been worked out here in the US, particularly around the unconventional shale play type technology, to help develop the infrastructure over there.
Really cool. All right, one more time. What's the date?
It's the 18th of January.
Okay. And if somebody wanted to know more about it, is there a website?
There is. They can actually go to the Australian American Chamber of Commerce website, which is www.aacc-houston.org.
All right, guys, I really appreciate you coming in and telling us about the Australian American Energy Conference.
And it's the 5th annual.
The 5th annual.
Yep.
Really cool. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the event for sure.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us, Russ.
You bet. You bet. That wraps up my discussion with Greg Foley of Stonebridge and Colin McHattie, an independent consultant. And that wraps up this episode of The Energy Makers Show, heard nationwide on the radio and seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com.